So what are the common sources of algae? Like I think of spirulina, chlorella. Are those the main two? Are there other ones that you think of when you think of algae? And when it comes to swallowing or chewing, what is your opinion on the best way to absorb things? Because
Sure.
is this something, if you're chewing, you're getting the digestive enzymes going, the saliva. So I'd love to just hear, what type of algae are we talking about and the
Yeah.
best way to consume it.
Excellent. Great questions. So first of all, as I alluded to earlier, algae is a food. Now, the thing I haven't told you, though, is that algae was the first life on Earth almost 4 billion years ago. Before algae, Earth was just gas and water. I have no idea what started it growing. Spirulina was the first one, but they do have fossils that are dated back to about 3 billion years. And we've only been here for about 800 million. So it was here about 3 billion years ahead of us, and it's still here. So there's got to be something special about that. But I mention that because algae is everywhere. It's in the oceans, the lakes, the rivers, the streams, your swimming pool, your aquarium. And those are all fine and very critical for sustaining the life in the oceans and the rivers. That's what the fish eat, that's what the whales eat, but they're toxic to human beings. So the only algae that you want to consume, and the ones that we sell, are harvested in fresh water. So two key points here: not grown in the ocean, and that they are harvested, which means they are monitored as an agricultural crop. And
Why
that,
not in the ocean? Why does the ocean make a difference?
well, a couple of things. First of all, the ocean is toxic. We know that. And I mention that because a lot of people will go online and they'll read about blue-green algae, because the two algae we're talking about, one is an example of a blue-green algae and another one is a green algae. So you could read about blue-green algae blooms being toxic. Yes, if they're in the ocean, because that's where the algae, what it does is it kills bacteria. So when algae shows up, don't blame the algae. They're just showing up because bacteria has shown up, and most of it occurs in the summertime when there's more runoff from the agricultural crops. There's more, human waste in the ocean area. So algae poor algae gets beat up as being the blame, but they're just the cleanup crew. So it's toxic because that's what algae does, is it absorbs carbon dioxide and it kills bacteria. So you don't want algae that comes from it's the only thing I can think of that you don't want it wild. You want it cultivated, because it's the only way to protect yourself, because algae will absorb whatever's in the water. And if there's garbage in the water, there'll be garbage in your algae. And that's why we do third-party lab tests here in the United States at an FDA-approved lab to ensure people there isn't any toxins in ours, because we also sell ours. We're the only algae company that sells it through doctors nationwide. So algae is everywhere, but the only ones you want to eat are the ones that are harvested. Now, the two main ones that we're going to talk about are blue-green algae and green algae, although there's also a red algae. But there's two main categories within algae that I want to help you understand. One is called macroalgae and the other one is called microalgae. We're going to be talking mostly about microalgae, but what is macroalgae? Well, that's seaweed, dulse, kelp. It's all that big stringy stuff that washes up on shore. Maybe you get a dulse salad, and there's kelp noodles now. They're really good for you because of the fiber and the iodine, but there's virtually no nutrition in them. It's just fiber, okay? So it's good stuff, but not compared nutritionally. Microalgae has 1,000 times more nutrition than seaweed or macroalgae. And it's called microalgae because it's microscopic. You can't see this stuff. Something like about 100 cells will fit on the head of a pin. So that's why it's everywhere, and people are just not even aware of it. So the two that we're going to talk about, one is a blue-green algae and one is a green. Why are they called that? Because the green algae only has one pigment in it, which is chlorophyll, and the blue-green algae has two pigments in it. The blue one is called phycocyanin, and the green one is chlorophyll. I'll just diverge for a moment to show you, because when you look at our algae tablets, they look very similar, but trust me, there is the actual blue, the blue pigment, and I'm going to show you right now. So here's a chart that shows you a couple of tablets of spirulina in water, just a couple of them in water, and you can see this beautiful blue that comes out of the tablets. And down here, this is chlorella, which only has which only has one pigment, chlorophyll. Now, see how it clumps? I did this test 20 times. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I finally had my epiphany, and I'm going to share this with you. So the blue pigment that's in spirulina, called phycocyanin, which has lots of healing properties, we'll talk about it in a minute, is a water-based pigment. And this is one of the reasons why it's known for preventing the growth of blood vessels to tumors. It also stops the coronavirus from entering your cells, and we could talk about that in a minute, but all science-based. But it's water-based. Chlorella or chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment, and that's why it doesn't disperse, because fat and water don't mix, right? And that's going to come up to be an important fact in a few minutes when I talk to you about the importance of chlorophyll. So we're talking about the fact that there's a this blue-green algae and a green algae. So blue-green, one of the blue-green algae, and the one that's used and grown pretty much everywhere and that we sell, is called spirulina. And again, I'm going to show you, I don't know if you can see this. These are two tablets. This is the blue-green and this is the green algae. So spirulina is known to be an energizing algae. Why? Because it has the highest concentration of protein in the world, and all the protein is already in amino acid form. So it doesn't take any work for your body to gain access to it. It has 18 of the 20 aminos, including all the ones your body can't make. So it's a complete protein. Now, importantly, not only are those aminos individually available, spirulina is loaded with B vitamins. B vitamins are what convert aminos and glucose into energy. Spirulina also has a lot of iron, which carries oxygen in your blood, and that gives you energy. It releases nitric oxide, which opens up your blood vessels so that blood and nutrients can flow, and that gives you energy. It's loaded with essential fatty acids like omega-3, so it helps with your brain, thought. It's loaded with boron, and there's 40 other vitamins and minerals. So because it gives you energy, I thought, well, instead of calling it spirulina, let's call it ENERGYbits. Makes it a whole lot easier for people to remember. So that's what we did. There's also another amazing thing that spirulina does, because of the high protein and high antioxidants, is it builds your skin and hair health. So I made a second version of spirulina because we found women didn't like the blue packaging. I called it ENERGYbits because it builds your skin and hair. And if anyone's been learning about collagen as a way to improve your joints and your skin, I think that's a great thing. But I point out that spirulina has all the same protein as collagen, plus the highest chlorophyll in the world, plus 40 other vitamins and minerals. So I would just say up level, forget the collagen, up level and just take algae, you get everything and then everything else. So spirulina is very energizing. Now, it also satisfies your hunger. So a lot of people use it for intermittent fasting. And as I mentioned, there's only one calorie per tablet. So when you get up in the morning, that's usually when people have spirulina in the morning, in the afternoon, when you're tired, hungry, want a little bit of a boost, or before sports. We are used by 5 or 6 NHL teams, tons of Olympic teams, marathon runners, triathletes. They love it because it gives them steady energy, steady focus, and does not upset their stomach like all the gels and bars and drinks do, which are loaded with sugar and carbs. So there's 0 carbs in any of the algae. So it's ketogenic, paleo, vegan, and all that sort of good stuff. So it's great for a meal replacement, just to, get up and go in the morning, if you want to start casually, 2 or 3 tablets, 5 or 10 or better. I'd take like about 100 a day myself, but and our NHL players take 75. But I think if you aim for 5 or 10, if you're doing sports, maybe 15 to 30, you'll get a better performance. And you can, for spirulina, I would recommend you swallow them or put them in a smoothie, because there's nothing you can do to spirulina to make it taste better. And there's no shame in swallowing these things. So it is what it is. Chlorella, as you're going to find out, tastes actually pretty good, but nothing you can do about spirulina. So, but there's so much protein and so much nutrition that, it can replace almost all your other supplements. I would keep D3, but it would replace your fish oil, your CoQ10, your multivitamin, all your magnesium, potassium. It's all in the algae. And because it's food, remember, we're from nature and so is algae. And so your body knows what to do with all the nutrients, not just the 40 that we have documented, but there's thousands of other, enzymes and coenzymes and factors and pigments that harmonize together. I tell people algae is the orchestra. It's got everything. It makes everything work better. And when you take a supplement, they're made from extracts, which don't exist in nature. And they're usually made in factories with high heat that kill them, the nutrients. That's why the numbers are so high on supplements, because they know that your body's only going to absorb 5 or 10% of it. With algae, you absorb 99% of it instantly. Now, you'd asked me about chewing or swallowing. The only benefit to chewing is that it does get into your bloodstream pretty quickly. But even without chewing spirulina, I want to point out that spirulina is technically a bacteria. There is no cellulose wall. Remember, it was the first life on Earth. It is a bacteria. So it gets absorbed almost instantly. Between that and the fact that the amino acids are all individual, makes it a very rapid absorption rate. And that's why the athletes love it so much. Now, in terms of setting expectations, this isn't something that's going to make you feel like you had a lightning bolt. This is no stimulants. There's no caffeine or sugar or anything. In fact, you might not even notice that you feel better. The best way to describe how you feel from spirulina is fresh. That's pretty much it. Just feel alert and fresh, like you had a good night's sleep. And, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good to me. I don't want to be lightning bolt energized and have a high and then a crash. You won't get a high and you won't get a crash. And you also don't have to worry about taking too much. It's food, so some people need a lot and some people need a little. So you could just play around with whatever works, but we do suggest, starting at least with 5 or 10, and then if you can get up to 30, again, remember, it replaces a lot of your other foods, including vegetables, protein, sports nutrition. You will have fewer trips to the grocery store, lower bills, and much better health. So I'm pretty proud of what spirulina does, and I know you know a fair amount about it as well, Rob. So that's kind of our spirulina story.